Do some fun now. It's after lunch. Everyone's going to go into that little lunchtime lull, so I've got to just amp it up and wait for all the topics. I feel like I've been too kind. No one's really objecting or kind of protesting yet, so I thought I'd just tackle one of the biggest topics, the identity of the Antichrist. Okay, so if you have a Bible, I'd really love you to use it right now, okay? And I'd love you to turn in your Bible to 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. Okay. 1 John chapter 2 verse 18 says this, "Little children, it is the last hour. Just as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have appeared." This is how we know it is the last hour. Okay? Let's go down a couple of verses to 1 John chapter 2, verse 22. Who is the liar? Isn't it the person who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This person is the Antichrist, the one who denies the Father and the Son. Okay? Let's go down a little bit further to 1 John 4, chapter 4, verse 3. Every spirit that does not confess that every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you have heard that it is coming, and now it is already in the world. Okay? Now I want you to just flick over. Don't flick too far forward, but just to 2 John. Now, 2 John is so small, if you flick over too many pages, you'll miss it. Okay? And I want you to look at verse 7. Many deceivers have gone into the world who do not confess that Jesus Christ came as a human being. This kind of person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. Okay? Now, look at me carefully. You have just read every single reference to the Antichrist in the whole of the Bible. I like making bold statements. People are like, that can't be right, Sean. That definitely can't. That cannot be right, Sean. There's just no way. Okay? So what I do is I have this lovely Bible program called Bible Works. If I had it plugged in, I'd show you how it works. And what I can do is I can right-click on any particular word, and I can search through the whole of the Bible, and it does a digital search through every single verse in the Bible. And then, because Greek is a funny language, Greek doesn't have kind of tenses and stuff. It just changes the endings of the word depending on what function it's playing in the sentence. I can go search on the lema, which is like the root word. And the word antichristos and antichristoi and all the variations of the word, you have just read every single variation of the word Antichrist in the whole Bible. Okay? But Sean, you say, I can hear your thoughts. Sean, you say, none of these are references to the book of Revelation. The word Antichrist, plural, does not appear in the book of Revelation. Everyone's like, whoa. Come on. It's very easy to prove me wrong. Just find a reference. So what I'm saying is falsifiable. Using the scientific method, it's very easy to prove me wrong. Just find one reference to the Antichrist, the book of Revelation. Now, I'm talking specifically the word Antichrist. And the word Antichrists, plural. Or any version of anti and Christos. No. Dragon is very different. Okay? So now you've read every single reference to the Antichrist. Okay? Sean, you're laboring this point. I feel like I do need to labor this point. Because often people are like, man, have you read Revelation and talks about the Antichrist? I go, yes, I have read Revelation. It does not talk about the Antichrist. It talks about other things, but it doesn't talk about the Antichrist. So let me answer this question. What is the Antichrist? Well, no, let me do one better. Let me ask you to identify the Antichrist. Let's go back. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. Okay? Little children, it is the last hour, just as you've heard that the Antichrist is coming. Now, is coming is future tense. Do we all agree? Okay, good. So now, many antichrists, plural, right? We add a word, antichrist, and then we add a little s at the end. That makes it not singular, but plural. So more than one. Are you with me? Okay. Many antichrists have appeared. What is the tense? Past tense. Okay. So, not one, but many. Is that fair? Okay. Past tense plus coming. Is that fair? Okay. So plural, antichrists. Not one, many. Are you with me? This is crucial. I have to walk you step by step, otherwise you'll never believe me. Okay? I have to take the step by step. Otherwise people are like, Sean, you're making up stuff. No, I'm not. Okay? Now, 1 John 2:22. Who is the liar? Who is a question of identity, right? Are you with me? Okay. So we're asking a question of identity. Isn't it the person who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This person is the Antichrist, the one who denies the Father and the Son. Okay? Who's the Antichrist? Those who deny the Father and the Son. Okay? Am I making anything up yet? Not yet. Okay? So the Antichrist, who is this Antichrist? The one who denies the Father and the Son. Now, when it says the one, it is not saying that there is only one. How do we know that? Because we've already established in 2:18, not one, but many. So we could translate the Greek, anyone who denies the Father and the Son is the Antichrist. Whoever. That's a good translation there. Okay? Whoever denies the Father. Okay? So this is active. It's not just anybody who doesn't believe, it's people who deny it. So they're propagating something. That is not true. Okay? Father and the Son. Are you with me? Okay. Every 1 John 4:3, every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. Okay? Now, every spirit here could be every prophetic spirit or everyone who prophesies or who speaks by the Spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. So how do we know if someone's a false prophet? they don't confess Jesus. What do they confess about Jesus? Who he truly is and what he rightly stands for. Okay? So, you get false prophets do not confess Jesus. Okay? Now, the question then becomes, what does it mean to confess Jesus? And I would argue, you're welcome to question this, that refers to an orthodox understanding of Jesus. The technical term, it has to do with your Christology, who you understand Jesus is and what Jesus has done. So what John is talking about is a faithful confession of Jesus, who he is and what he's done. Do you want me to defend that in more detail? Or are you okay with that? Are we good? We're good. Okay. 2 John. Yes, please. Yes. Yes. Yep. Yep. Okay. Yes. Okay. So that would be a faulty Christology, and that would be problematic. Okay? Ooh, look at this. Look at that. Not just his divinity, his work, everything about who he is. Now, if you could change, oh, yeah, I thought you were doing really well there, buddy. Have you got it? Oh, look at you. 2 John 7. My teammate at the back there is doing a marvelous job. 2 John 7. So, second book of John, verse 7. There are no chapters. It's just one chapter. Many deceivers have gone into the world who do not confess that Jesus Christ came as a human being. Okay? So that's why I said it doesn't just relate to his divinity, it relates also to his humanity. So that's why when we put all the pieces of the puzzle together, it's an orthodox view of Jesus, or the false teachers or antichrists are proclaiming a faulty Christology. Okay? Many deceivers have gone into the world who do not confess that Jesus Christ came as a human being. Look at you, legend. This kind of person is the deceiver and the antichrist. This is the deceiver and the antichrist. Okay? HCSB. Okay. So, notice how he's talking about many deceivers have gone out into the world. They do not confess the coming of Jesus Christ in the flesh or as a human being. This is the deceiver and the antichrist. Okay? So they have a false mission and a false gospel. Okay? Why? Because they don't believe that Jesus came as a human being, and they don't confess Jesus, and they deny the Father and the Son. Okay? So, later on in the church, we have this heresy called docetism. It comes from the Greek word dokeo, which means to appear. And they believe Jesus just appeared to be human, but he wasn't really human, he was God. Okay? So that's heresy. Bad, don't believe that. Okay? Jesus, human being, 100% human, 100% God. Okay? Do we know two natures, Christology? Should we? No. Okay. Okay. This is all we know about the Antichrist and Antichrist from Scripture. So, let me summarize a bit here. More than one. Already active in the first century. Already active in John's time. How do I know that? Past tense. Have appeared. Have come. What's so bad about them? False prophets. They do not confess Jesus. They have a false mission. They go out into the world, but they're deceivers. They do not confess that Jesus has come in the flesh as a human being. Okay? Now, Yes? You are absolutely right. I'm differentiating between your normal unbeliever who's like, I don't care, I don't believe any of that stuff, and an active person who's propagating a false gospel and a false understanding of Jesus. 100% correct. That is what I'm saying. Okay? Yep, yep. So this doesn't apply to them because they're not on the active mission. Okay? We're talking about people who have an active mission to proclaim a false gospel, a false understanding of Jesus. Okay? So, let me get a little bit technical now. The Greek word anti, it can mean against in certain contexts, but it usually means instead of. Okay? So an antichrist is a person who has an understanding of God that is a false one instead of the real one. I need to stay in my lines here, sorry. Like, don't step over that line. Oh, the temptation. Okay? So they are proclaiming something instead of the truth, they are proclaiming something false. Okay? So, sure, that's all very nice for biblical scholars, but what relevance does this have to us today? Who do we know that is actively promoting and propagating a false understanding of Jesus? Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah. 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 Chapter 2, the man of lawlessness. If we look at the way the man of lawlessness is characterized, his characterization is completely different to this, so we should not confuse them. Paul is talking about something else. He's not talking about the Antichrist. The way Paul talks about the man of lawlessness in 2 Thessalonians 1 to 17 is very different to the way John talks about the Antichrist. So they are two separate figures. It's like saying Paul is Moses. Yeah. Yeah. That's just got nothing to do with the Antichrist. Paul is talking about something different. He's not talking about the Antichrist. John is talking about something his church is facing. He's not talking about anybody standing in a temple. He's not talking about anybody claiming to be God. Well, no, he's not talking about it. He's talking about people. Anyone, any person who proclaims a false understanding of Jesus. He's not talking about one, he's talking about many. I think what you've noted there is the problem, is that people take this word and they mix it with other words. They combine it with the man of lawlessness. They combine it with the beast. And it's like Frankenstein exegesis. We just take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there, and we put it all together and we create this interpretive monster. And I'm just going, just read the evidence. Just read. You've read the evidence. Now, it's very easy to prove me wrong. Find another reference to the Antichrist in the Bible. You can prove me wrong. Very easy. Find another reference to the Antichrist that contains these elements. You won't. Which is very concerning. Okay? Because if I'm right, okay, let's just say that. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with me. You're a free Christian. You've got to think. You've got to grapple with the evidence. You are absolutely free to disagree with me. Okay? But You at least got to understand why I hold to my view. Okay? You can't just write me off as some wacko. Okay? I am a wacko, but you can't write me off yet. Okay? If that's all the evidence we have for this thing called the Antichrist, if that is really every reference we have, the question is, why do so many people think that this is one person coming in the future who's going to lead some global world government? And in my mind, there's a disconnection between what Christians think and what the Bible actually says. I'm not talking about a system. I think John's talking about people who propagate a false understanding of Jesus. That's the way the word is being used. Look at the evidence. Show me where I'm wrong. Hey? Revelation 13, we will get to that. But it's certainly not talking about it as a person, and it's not talking about it as somebody who promotes a false understanding of Jesus. With the Antichrist. Yeah. 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 Okay. So I don't think the word anti means against. I think it means instead of. That's the normal meaning of the Greek word. It can mean against in certain contexts. None of the way it's grammatically used in those passages suggests that it's against. Okay? I don't think that the Antichrist is being spoken of in a different way in 2 Thessalonians. I think Paul is talking about something completely different. And the way Paul describes the man of lawlessness, he describes it as one person. You're absolutely right. He describes it as one person. He describes it as somebody who seeks to take the place of God. But none of that is the way John is talking about Antichrist. None of that fits with what John is talking about here. John isn't talking about one, he's talking about many. John isn't talking about a future thing, he's talking about a present thing. He does say that they're coming, but they're still with us today. But you keep talking about it as a system. John talks about it as a person. Anyone who believes this. A system doesn't believe something. John talks about it in a personal way. Anyone who denies that Jesus has come in the flesh. A system doesn't deny, people deny. And so I think that's where we're differing. Marion. Yep. Yep. Yes. Yeah. I think if you look at 1 John 2:19, the verse just after this one, it says that there are those who were amongst us, but they've left because they weren't real. So there's been a split in the church between those who hold to an orthodox understanding of Jesus and those who are under this false understanding of Jesus. And yes. Yeah, yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So John is describing a community, a group of people that are actively promoting a false understanding of Jesus. But he's talking about it in personal terms, so that's why I'm a bit hesitant with the word system because that abstracts it. Whereas John is talking about people who have left our community, people who are denying. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Plural, not one. Okay. I knew I was going to rock your feathers this time, eh? I had to just come and stand there and throw the cat amongst the pigeons. There we go. What are we reading in Revelation that blows? I think we're reading the beast. In Revelation 13, we are reading the beast as a particular person. When I think in Revelation 13, it's more likely an empire. It's the city on 7 hills, which is a very famous description of Rome. And the problem with historicizing it as Rome is people then think it's limited to Rome, whereas Rome becomes a type. Any empire, any group that does the types of things that the beast does, any civilization, any empire, will face the same judgment that the beast will face. So it still has contemporary relevance. It used to be Babylon, which is the image John uses. Then it was Persia. Then it was Greece. In John's time, it's Rome. In our time, please don't name any names. You're all welcome to your personal opinions. Okay? I hope so. I'm looking at the time going, I want to deal with the mark of the beast, but I don't, yeah. I'm not trying to make a specific group, and I'm not trying to name groups. What I'm trying to get is at the theology. And the theology is any group that actively promotes a false understanding of Jesus can be included in John's label, Antichrist. And John uses Antichrist. The synonyms for Antichrist are false prophet and deceiver. And I think the way we use language of Antichrist in the church today is a mistake. I don't think the way we use Antichrist is faithful to what John is talking about. So if we want to have an idea about somebody who's coming in the future, who's going to start a one-world government, okay, cool, but let's not use John as evidence for that. Let's try and find evidence somewhere else for that. Okay. So if I'm right, I'm open to be correction. Yeah. I think we should be far more careful with the way we use language of Antichrist, and we should abandon it completely with reference to this idea of a one world government or a future notion. Have I stepped on enough toes yet? That was lovely. Everyone's like, I don't know what to do with this. I feel like the rug has been pulled and I'm not sure. It's okay to be not sure. Absolutely. Please evaluate everything I am saying very carefully. Oh, right. Yes. Which false prophet? Okay. Yeah, sorry. I went for red because I was hoping it would stand up more than the black. Clearly, my intentions failed miserably. How about I try and move this forward? Yeah, it's not working, eh? There we go. Is that better? Yeah, sorry. Now I'm not going to make everybody happy. See, this was a losing game. You're welcome to take a photo of the board. I would say that in John, so if we just stick to the letters of John, which is the only reference to the Antichrist, that false prophets in 1 John 4 are those who are prophesying a false understanding of Jesus. And so I would say that they are synonymous. The deceivers, 2 John 7, the false prophets, 1 John 4, 1 to 3, the Antichrist, it's different words for the same group of people. Okay? No. Yeah, I mean, like if you were actively teaching with conviction that Jesus is just an ordinary created human being, in scholarly terms, because I know you're, if you were Bart Ehrman and you were propagating a false understanding of who Jesus is as a created being, I would happily lump you in with John's group here. Someone was preaching from the front, and unfortunate terminology there, but they said when Jesus was created. And I went, no, sorry. And everyone got a shock. Oh, Sean's objected. Why is Sean objecting? And I was like, you mean when Jesus was born? When Jesus incarnated? Jesus was never created. There never was when he was not. Okay? That is orthodox theology. You don't get to have an opinion on that. That is orthodoxy. That's 2,000 years of church history has struggled and won that battle, and you all say, amen, yes, we believe it. Okay? Whether you fully understand the implications or not is irrelevant. That's the cardinal truth of the Christian faith. Okay? Jesus is not a created being. These guys were saying Jesus didn't come in the flesh. He just appeared to be human. In the words of Gregory of Nyssa, that which he has not assumed, he has not healed. If Jesus has not become human, he cannot heal the human condition. Yeah, he's just a prophet. Yeah. So they revere him as a prophet, but just a prophet. So I'm just trying to make sure that you guys can see again. Here we go. Okay. I got 15 minutes, and I want to give you time for questions, but I also want to deal with the mark of the beast, which is as fun as this. So hold on. Are you ready? Okay. And I had to ruffle your feathers for one of the sessions. Come on, guys. I've been nice the whole time. No, there are no easy sessions in my classes, Marion. You should know that. Okay. I do love a clean whiteboard, sorry. The mark of the beast. There are two lovely Greek words which John uses to refer to a marking, and they are different but conceptually related. So let me unpack that. Okay? So, we have one word for mark, or marking. Oh, no, wait, don't use red. Sorry. What you gave me? Is that better? Oh, man, sorry, guys. And now my pen's You got too hopeful too quickly, okay? So there's a particular Greek word for this, and the Greek word is charisma. Okay, it just means marking. Then we have another word. Oh, man. Why do you hate me? No, this one doesn't even work. Marion, you can't give me pens that don't work. Is that brand new? Oh, that's delightful. Wasn't there a black one around here? Okay. Oh, there it is. Yes. We have victory. Okay? Sealing. Okay? Now, sealing is from a signet ring. Okay? In the Roman world, you have a signet ring, you have the wax, and you give it your seal. Okay? Now, in the book of Revelation, there are markings. A marking can be used for a slave as a marking of ownership, or you have a seal, which is a symbol of, can also be ownership, but it can also be belonging. Okay? So, in the Old Testament, the way markings and seals are used is quite interesting. They serve two particular functions. The first one they serve is protection. Okay? So Cain, remember Cain? Cain got a marking, and
Yes. Oh, love it. My man, Braden. Okay. So remember Cain? Cain received a marking on him so that he was protected. No one could kill him. Okay? So marking can serve the function of protection, but it can also serve the function of belonging. Okay? So if you remember the golden rosette fixed to Aaron's turban in Exodus 28, 36 to 38, it had an engraving, holy to the Lord. Every Israelite could claim to bear God's name in Deuteronomy 9:19. All of those are indications of belonging. Okay? I haven't said anything too outrageous just yet. Everyone's still happy? Okay? So, this needs to be contrasted with a sealing, which is a signet, which can also be belonging, but it can also symbol allegiance or loyalty. Okay? So Roman soldiers had tattooed on their arm SPQR, property of the Roman Empire, allegiance to Rome. Okay? So, in Revelation chapter 7, verse 3, it says this: "Do not damage the earth or the sea or the trees until we have marked the servants of our God with a seal on their foreheads." Okay? Revelation 7:3, a seal on their foreheads. Revelation 9:4. They were told not to damage the grass or the earth or any green growth or any tree, but only those people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. In Revelation 14:1, and with him were 140,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads, or sealed or marked on their foreheads. Okay? And then 22:4. They will see his face and his name will be on their foreheads, presumably from the signet ring or the seal that they have received. Okay? So all of that serves to mark out the people who belong to God. Whoops. Okay. Now, let's look at the other side. Revelation 13. What is the reference there? 16 to 17. 16 to 17. Also, it causes both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one who can buy or sell, or who does not have the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. Okay? Revelation 14, 9 to 11. Those who worship the beast and its image and receive a mark on their foreheads or their hands. 14, 9, to 11. Okay, 16:2. So the angel went forth, poured a bowl on the earth, and a foul, painful sore came on those who had the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. And the last two references, 17:4 to 5. And 19:20. Where's 16? No, 16:2 is not a reference. Did I mean 19:20? Sorry, let me just double check that to make sure that I'm right. Oh, I did. Oh, okay. Thanks for that, guys. 16:2. Okay, and then, sorry, next page. Okay, so 24 as well. 24. Okay. And it says, they had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Okay? So John is juxtaposing these two things, those who have the mark versus those who have the seal. Now, I want to hear from you why I don't think it's a microchip. Why do I not think that the mark of the beast is a microchip? Okay, no. But so that the marking refers to those guys, the sealing refers to these guys. When John talks about receiving the mark on their hands, on their foreheads, why does Sean not think that refers to a microchip? Right? Thank you. Because there were no microchips in the first century. That we know. No, we can be quite confident about this one. No microchips. Okay, so there were no microchips in the first century, the second century, the third century, the fourth century, fifth century, all the way up until the invention of microchips. Okay? Now, what you can do is you can say, well, that was predictive. Okay? Yeah. But then of what relevance is that passage to the church for the first 1900 so years before there was microchips? But it's not relevant because there's no such thing as microchips, so no one in the first century has to worry about it. Okay. Yep. 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 Okay. Yep. Okay. But of what relevance is that to 1900 years of church history? So what we're saying, if it is a reference to a microchip, what we're saying is those verses, all of those verses, were completely irrelevant to the church for the first 1900 years until microchips were invented. Yeah? Yeah. 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 Yep. So, I mean, the big question here is it literal or is it metaphorical? Okay? If it symbols either protection or belonging and allegiance, the question we need to ask ourselves, is it literal or metaphorical? If you think it's a microchip, you've gone literal. But then you've got the problem of relevance. Okay? If you think it's metaphorical and it's about belonging and allegiance, then all of this is, do you belong to Jesus and follow his ways, or do you belong to a group of people that are opposed to Jesus and his ways? Yeah. There'd be lots of markers. We could say in the first century, attending a brothel was a mark of the beast. Because all men attended brothels in the first century. Unless you were a Jew or a Christian. The Roman philosopher Demosthenes, this is his view, not mine, says that we have wives for the legitimate production of offspring. Then we have slaves for the daily needs of the body. And we have concubines for special occasions. That is a very Greco-Roman mindset. Notice women were never allowed that opportunity. Never. Okay? So the big question is, do you take it literally or metaphorically? What do you do? If you take it literally, then you've got to think, how is this actually going to work out all the way through the church? If you take it metaphorically, it does work out all the way through the church, which is why I take it the seal is a sign of belonging and allegiance to Jesus. The marking is a sign of belonging and allegiance to the way of the system of the world, the beast. Yeah, I mean, John says or. He doesn't say and. He says you either have the marking on your head or the marking on your hands. So, I mean, I appreciate as a preaching way, we could talk about foreheads as a reference to the mind. I don't know if John's thinking that far. The forehead is not a kind of a reference to thinking and your mind. It makes a good preaching point, so I'm all for it, but I don't think that that's what John is intending. John is simply saying, no, who you already follow indicates what mark you have. The marking doesn't determine who you follow. Who you follow determines what marking you have. We're going to follow Jesus. And by following Jesus, by having the seal of the Spirit, we will follow Jesus. And we'll be able to recognize that seal in other brothers and sisters because they are following Jesus. And in the first century, how do you know who's part of the family? They live by the Spirit. This is the whole question of the book of Galatians. Do you know if someone's part of the people of God because they go and obey Sabbath or food laws or kosher laws, or do they visit the temple and offer sacrifices? Paul says, no, those works of the Lord don't tell us who belong to the people of God. Who belongs to the people of God? Your faithfulness to Jesus and your life in the Spirit. That's how we know who's part of the family.
I think there was somewhere in my life, I think an idea
Yes?
that you can belong to Jesus and pick up by mistake his marking.
Right.
Dooms you
Yes.
to not belonging to Jesus
Yes.
anymore. Even though you still desire Jesus,
Yes.
you are now
Yeah.
still in the mark.
Yeah.
And even I had this conversation when I was pregnant and preaching, that this lady would say, look how you might be passionate about Jesus now, but if you get that microchip
Yes.
to live
Yes.
and transact,
Yes.
you're now doomed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
so that just smashes that.
Yes.
By choosing that Jesus is Lord,
Yes.
He's God,
Yes.
He's not fully human,
Yes.
marks us with the Holy Spirit. That's what you're saying?
Not only marks us with the Spirit, but marks us in the eyes of other believers so that we can know who's part of the family. How do I know that you're a Christian? I have no way of judging your faithfulness to Jesus, what's going on inside your heart or in your head. All I can do is look at the life you live and the choices you make. And that marks you out. That identifies who's part of the church. And so for Paul, the fruit of the Spirit, because trees produce fruit, these are the markings. If your life is characterized by the Spirit, you will be growing in those fruit. Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. Totally. So what this theology does for me is I have no anxiety about technology in the future. Now, I have a lot of anxiety around AI and what we're busy doing with it. Not necessarily because I think it's going to take over the world, but because of the research I've already seen which suggests it's making us dumber. And dumb people can be more easily controlled.
Sorry, I don't disagree with any of what you just said in the last few minutes, but I'm still not clear
Yes?
why you don't think in that passage 3:16, 13, 17,
Yes?
why you don't think that there's a microchip or something like that.
Because no one in the first 1900 years had any notion of what a microchip is. Yeah. So all it does is it renders that passage irrelevant to John's community. No, sure. It could be, but then you're still taking it literally. Oh, because if I know you're a Christian, I'm not going to sell you anything. If I know you go to church, and we have evidence from the 2nd and the 3rd century that this is what happened. We find out someone, you can't shop here. You can't. We find out someone's a Christian. We don't buy from their bakery. We don't support them. This is why the Jewish community, even today, they look after their own. They do business with their own. They do business because what? They're trying to protect their community. So that's why I don't think so. Now, you're welcome to disagree with me. Okay. Yes. Yeah. 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 I think that's how you prevent getting the mark of the beast, patient endurance. You can either compromise your faith, which means you're just here, or you can be complacent and eventually you might end up there. But if you patiently endure in your faithfulness to Jesus, you have the mark, well, the seal of Christ on your forehead. See, the issue is, if you take seal and marking literally, are you going to have a literal seal on your forehead that says, I belong to Jesus? Why do we take this one metaphorically and then want to take this one literally? But so can a seal. You can get a seal, you can get a nice tattoo of a cross on your forehead that identifies you as a Christian. The name of God, the one who belongs to God. Yeah, with the barcode. Yeah. Yep. But they weren't doing that in the 1st century. They weren't doing that in the 2nd century. They weren't doing that in the 3rd. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Ephesians 1:13. Yep. Which is also why I disagree with my Catholic friends about the stigmata. So stigma is just the Greek word for the sealing or the marking of the Spirit. You mean a demonic spirit? Okay, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But we do that through patient endurance, understanding who Jesus is, understanding the life of the Spirit that God offers to us. And that's how, again, I think for me, it's because I take you're absolutely right, because I take the seal of Christ as a reference to the Holy Spirit, I don't see any of these as literal markings on my body. So if I don't see those as literal markings on my body, why would I see those as literal markings? And so the evidence here is the life you live. That will tell us who you belong to, ultimately. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Nero Caesar. So if you take the word Nero in Hebrew, and in Hebrew they often did this, where a letter represents a number, and if you take Nero Caesar or Caesar Nero, it adds to 666. And it is likely a reference to the Emperor Nero, who killed all those Christians. So the only problem with that view, and I kind of like that view, is in some manuscripts it's 616. Yeah, so that blows the idea out. So we have 666 in most of our manuscripts, but in a couple of manuscripts we have 616. Now, 616 could be a scribal error. You know, scribes late at night, he's been working for 12 hours and writes 616 instead of 66. Unfortunately, when you're copying manuscripts, this stuff happens. So I do think 666 is the more likely reading. But what I don't want to do is then say that 666 is only a reference to Nero. I want to say it's a reference to anybody who does what Nero does. Does that make sense? Well, come on now. Man, it's like 10 past. People want to go home. Oh, it's bad. Man. I'm joking. Go for it. Yes. Something else. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it was good intentions. It was a great evangelistic tactic. So I don't know if it's the best strategy or tactic, but it certainly did work for a group of people. Although my friend Cameron Jones has just done his master's thesis on eschatological anxiety in the church. And he's studying Christians who experience a real anxiety around this marking, around technology and stuff like that. And it's a real issue. So, I mean, that's worth exploring. I think, look, yeah, go for it. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Right. Right. I think for me it's prophetic in the sense that this is the Word of God challenging each generation who you're going to be faithful to. Are you going to be faithful to the beast or are you going to be faithful to the lamb? So for me, I don't think it's predictive in that sense that it challenges every generation who's your ultimate allegiance, who you're going to belong to. But I think, and I'll kind of finish with this, is my goal is that Christians would go back to the scriptures to see if it is so. Okay? I honestly believe the Bereans heard the teaching of the Apostle Paul and they went, interesting. And they went back and they searched the scriptures to see if it was so. And some of the things we've kind of picked up along the way, I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't actually think that that's faithful. I don't think that that's right. And I think we need to equip people to ask good questions like, wait a minute, why did you connect A and B? How did you do that? Why did you do that? What's the reasoning behind that? And not just, hey, Sean has an opinion up the front here. Well, don't take Sean's opinions. Read the scriptures. Read the scriptures to see if it is so. If I'm wrong about the Antichrist, I will gladly change my mind. I've done it before. I'm not incapable of changing my mind. But I think that is the most faithful reading of the scriptures that I have at the moment. So that's the one I'm like, let's Let's stick with what Scripture says and not add these other ideas and stuff. I'm just going to wrap up now. So I think we just need to go back to the Scriptures and say, right, is that what the Scriptures is saying? And let's read together. Let's not read by ourselves, because sometimes I think by myself I can conjure up a whole bunch of interesting ideas. But read in community, where you can go have a brother say, whoa, why did you think that? Why do you think that? Or why do you believe that? Or why do we do that? Does that make sense? Okay.
Fantastic. Can we give Dr. Sean a hand?